contacts. Originally, it was supposed to be T.J. Collins working with me, and then he got tagged. Our state police, our OEM is just overwhelmed with all of this recovery work. There's a joint field office that FEMA opened up down in Middletown. That is an old AT&T or Via, Winthrop, I'm sorry. Well, it's pretty damn close. But it's an old AT&T Avaya Lucent building with, I don't know what, 800,000 people working in it. I don't know how much that's now. Gotta be something. It's a big building though. It's a big building with tons and tons of people running around, not just from FEMA at the federal level, but from the state as well. And our Office of Emergency Management is stretched really, really thin. So TJ was supposed to be here, then it was going to be Sergeant Sinatra. He couldn't make it, so unfortunately that's it. But I'm going to kind of stop there. I don't know if you'd like to hear more about any specific aspect of how we reacted to Sandy from the state or anything else, but feel free. Yes, sir.
Is the state going to look into alternative fuel like natural gas? The pipeline exists. The generators are useless if you have no supply. So I was just wondering if there's going to be any research into alternative fuel for diesel generation, for facility management.
At what level? For public facilities or to propose?
Both, or at any level, legislation, or is there going to be any mandate to?
Don't know. I have not heard of any effort to really go specifically in that direction. I know it's a smart way to go. We do have we're a pipeline crisscross state. I mean, but that doesn't mean it makes it any easier for us to necessarily get it just because the pipeline goes through here. But it's,
yeah, but the gas usually is pretty reliable. It's
yeah.
pressure station. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Let me put it this way: if I was doing one at my home, or if I was planning for my business to install one, I would probably go that way. I would absolutely go that way. Most of the gas stations, Florida's legislation that requires gas stations within a mile of a designated state emergency evacuation route to have backup generation for their pumps, resulted in, now they also did some tax. I told you that everybody does it differently. We were gonna, the proposal here says something about 10-year tax interest-free loan. Florida gave tax incentives for so many years. If you spent this much, it depends on the size of the station in Florida. If you're a 2-pump station or a 10-pump station, the cost is going to be slightly different. So they adjusted their incentives, but after those stations complied with that legislation, and this went back to Katrina. This was right around Katrina, so that was 2005 that Florida put this legislation in place. They required it to be done within like 2 years. So I think over half, maybe even greater than half, of the units that were installed at gas stations in Florida were natural gas. I know that upstate New York, remember the ice storms of a couple of winters ago? That just
89.
Battered upstate New York. There were a number of fuel stops up there, truck stop type places, that were the only places around. You could see them miles away on the horizon with the lights on. Everything else was pitch black because they were on natural gas and unaffected by all the power lines coming down. Which, by the way, we got lucky in New Jersey, by the way, with all the power outages and stuff. Everybody forgets about cows. Gotta go help. We got really lucky. We've got a very forward-leaning Department of Agriculture crew at present in New Jersey, and they did a lot of very unique things to make sure that didn't become an animal crisis after after the storm moved through, both from the flooding aspect and the power outages. More so the power outages, because a lot of the agricultural areas are not right along the coast, so the flooding wasn't so big of an issue. What about, just grab me. I'm here and happy to talk with you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Go right now. Am I leading into Jason?
Leading into me.
I can Jason Wynn.
My name's Jason Wynn, and this is Matthew Martinez. I am the logistics branch chief, as it says up here, from FEMA Region 2, and Matt works in General Services Administration in Region 2. And just so you know, from regions, is both GSA and FEMA are both divided into 10 different regions throughout the country. The numbering is a little bit different, but the states actually align per region. And Region 2 encompasses New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. So Matt and I work together at our Regional Response Coordination Center down at Naval Base Earl in Cold Lake, New Jersey, during this entire event. So we're going to kind of divide this presentation into two parts. The first part, I'm going to kind of go over supply chain stuff, like commodities that are shipped up here, how we distributed, the differences between New York and New Jersey, how much stuff we went through. And FEMA and GSA are both part of ESF 7. If you guys don't know what that is, under the National Response Framework, there's 15 ESFs, and ESF is an emergency support function, and ESF 7 is resource support. So FEMA and GSA are both co-leads. So FEMA often gets all the stuff, and we use GSA to do all the transportation to move the stuff. This right here is a quote from Administrator Fugate, and I'm not going to read the entire thing, but the main motto behind it is go big, go smart, and go fast. When something happens, he used to be the director, state director of emergency management in Florida before he took the role of leading FEMA, and he went through the Florida 4 hurricanes back in, what was it, 2004, I think. So he knows from experience that a lot of times states can get overwhelmed, and his main thing is he wants to make sure that we work with our states to get their requirements, and then we have a little buffer zone afterwards to make sure that they don't run out of stuff. And to get it there in a quick and expeditious manner, so the people that ultimately need the things are sitting there waiting for food or water or cots or blankets or what have you. This happened on like October 24th, I guess it was. We saw this is a predicted track of Sandy, and so what happens is there's different regions. So FEMA Region 4 is like from here to here. FEMA Region 3 is from here to here. From here to here. FEMA Region 2 is from here to here, and this is FEMA 1, Region 1. So all the response centers and all of these FEMA regions and most of the states all activated. And consequently, they have, I said before, we have a Regional Response Coordination Center. FEMA National has a National Response Coordination Center, which coordinates and adjudicates resources and personnel and things like that between different FEMA regions. So at the same time, it's all the county OEMs, all the, and again, you can see like down here, the affected surge. All basically the county OEMs, the state OEMs, and the federal response centers of all those different regions simultaneously activated. So there's a whole bunch of people getting to work, and then you're thinking to yourself, hey, if it really takes this turn, basically from FEMA Region 4, which is here, all the way up to FEMA Region 1 can be impacted, which is going to ultimately require a lot of stuff, whether it be fuel, meals, water, what have you.
But I will.
Okay.
He brings up it's a perfect point though, because right at where Jason got to right here is a very common decision point within the state to decide where do we go. Everybody thinks that FEMA does, FEMA comes in and does everything in these cases and gets beat up when they're not there quick enough and with enough stuff and not enough tents or whatever. And that's not always necessarily the case. We had, I'll give you a good example. You just mentioned water. They had this, the picture doesn't do it justice of what they had down at Lakehurst.
Yeah, I got it.
It was massive. It was massive. I mean, it was, yeah, even that, it's too, I mean, look how far away you got to get a sense of what was there. I mean, it was massive. This was a big distribution effort down there. But we had a request for 1,500 cases of bottled water to come in for shelter, we were operating at Continental Arena, or no, it's not, Jesus, I'm dating myself. Izod Arena. And we looked around, we didn't have that quantity in the state's possession, in our state stockpile or warehouse of stuff. So the immediate response was, put a request in to FEMA for it. I mean, we knew they had it at the ISB because they shared with us everything that was coming in, everything that was there. So we knew ahead of time if we needed this, then we could go and whittle off some of the supply from Lakers. Well, there's a unique aspect to that. This doesn't come necessarily gratis. There's a cost to that, and the state shares, the federal government and the state government agree when the president signs the declaration.
It's typically a 75-25.
75-25, so if something cost $100,000, a generator was going to cost $100,000 to deliver and install, the state would have to sign. And there's an official down at the state EOC who signs on behalf of the state, yeah, we're good with that. We'll kick in that 25 grand at whenever, sometime down the road.
Airport, in New Jersey it was a little bit different. New Jersey, again, this is another thing I preach, and I understand it's lack of staffing, lack of planning money, or what have you, but most states and most counties are what, yes? Oh, 5 minutes. I'm getting rushed because Gene killed all my time.
Sorry.
So most states and most municipalities don't really have good distribution plans. They don't have pre-designated facilities. They don't have MHE contracts in place. They don't have trained personnel to distribute stuff. So New Jersey as a whole doesn't really have that, but they actually came up with a pretty good plan on the fly. And New Jersey's plan, instead of going to a staging area like we did in New York, New Jersey, we just went right to the points of distribution, which were the various county EOCs. So we would get order efficient operation in the world, I mean, for multiple reasons. One, we were getting, the states were kind of guessing requirements. They didn't really know how much they need. New Jersey was actually a lot better than New York. New York, because their population is so extensive. I mean, they have 8-9 million people that live in New York City. We were at one point delivering 1 million truckloads of water and 1 million truckloads, I mean, I'm sorry, 1 million meals and 1 million liters of water per day. I mean, every day. And that's what they wanted. That's what Administrator Fugated wanted. That's what Mike Byrne, who's a federal coordinating officer, wanted. And that's what the state director wanted for New York. So every day we were literally delivering 1 million meals and 1 million liters of water. New Jersey was a lot less overestimated. But ultimately, we delivered 1,479 truckloads of stuff. We'll end up sending back 708 truckloads of stuff. And this was all based on, supposed requirements that states, a lot of it also had to do with 2 weeks before an election. So I think that, from a political perspective, they wanted to make sure no matter what, no one's going to go hungry, no one's not going to have a cot, no one's not going to have a blanket, what have you. So anyway, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this is a quick timeline from when it started to when we finally retrograded our last trailers. And I was saying before, it wasn't very efficient. And one of the after action items, which I'll get to next, is a few after action items that FEMA and other federal agencies collectively really need to improve upon. One of them is retrograding empty trailers. I mean, we basically ended, let me see. So we ended right here, November 16th. We didn't close our staging operation to January 23rd. And that's just because we had like 900 or 700, whatever it was, empty trailers that needed to be retrograded. And our contracts and stuff like that we're so worried about getting stuff there quick, we don't often think from the beginning about sending the stuff back. And there's no penalties or anything like that associated in those contracts for carriers to expeditiously come pick stuff up. So what carriers do is they wait till they have a truck driver driving by with a shipment, and then when it's convenient for them and least costly to them, they come and pick up their empty trailer. We have working groups developing courses of action to try to rectify that, whether that means amending existing transportation contracts or going maybe with one large contract like we used to have back in the day through the Department of Transportation. We don't know yet, but we're looking at different avenues to fix that problem. Lessons learned. There's, again, the first thing is the empty trailers. It took almost 3 months to do our retrograde process, which is completely unacceptable. It really inconvenienced the base. We're paying that. People work there basically babysitting empty trailers. Another problem too, and I'm not trying to knock GSA, but as Matt explained to you, they have a tender system. So oftentimes when you deal with GSA, and there's not one company that can support this many trailers at one time, but the way the tender system works is you often get 5th or 6th level subcontractors from companies that win bids hauling stuff and that are owner operators of trailers, and you can't figure out who to call to pick up this stuff up. So we're working with GSA and, like I said, the other federal agencies to fix that. And it's not just a GSA problem. The Corps of Engineers, the same thing. They had so many trailers that their primary contractor, subs over and over and over again. And when it comes time for us to report, hey, we sent a spreadsheet, we have 200 empty trailers, come pick these up. It's hard finding out, especially the owner-operator ones, who they actually belong to, and get them to come get those things quickly. Expected a lot of lessons learned. Just really quick, just for curiosity's sake, I'm sure you want to know, and I had to actually look this up. For New Jersey, we provided New Jersey for this event 1,172,400 liters of water, 761,040 meals, 3,012 cots, and 31,000 blankets. For New York, we give New York 2.7 billion liters of water, 3.7 million meals, 3,012 cots. Cots are weird. Like, cots don't come in a standard, like, with water, it's like 16,200 liters of water per truck. Cots come in all different sizes, so depending on what kind of cots you get, they come in different quantities. So I don't even know what that converts to truckloads. And we gave New York 220,000 blankets. There was a big blanket push in New York because they had large-scale apartment buildings with no power, and it was getting cold out. They had that snowstorm like a week afterwards. So the city was handing out blankets left and right to people just to try to keep them warm. So unless there's any questions right now for me, I'm going to turn over to Matt. He's going to go over the GSA transportation program. And I thought there'd be more commercial vendors here. That's one of the reasons we did this. But he's going to go over the GSA transportation program and how their tender system works.
Are there any commercial vendors out here representing? So that's going to be very easy for me to do this. Okay.
Good luck.
No problem.
Thanks.
I'm already on your lunchtime. So basically, what Jason said is the GSA is the broker for the transportation service provider. And if you're a federal organization and you need a transportation service provider, you come to GSA. We have a list of already contracted trucking agencies that are ready to support your effort. And what they're trying to do with FEMA is they're trying to actually take that list and break it down to not only federally approved, but FEMA approved transportation service providers. And so, like you said, we were going to pitch a little spiel on that for the transportation people that work on it. So if you have any questions about becoming a transportation service provider with the GSA in general, then these are the points of contact right here. And nobody's writing them down, so that's good. So we can go on to the very end slide. This is for FEMA. Once you become a GSA service provider, transportation service provider, then you go into the FEMA points of contact and you submit your information, company name, address, point of contact, the accounting codes. You have to be approved by GSA and the capabilities that your trucking organization has. So if you have a trucking organization that you primarily like to use and you think that might benefit in this program, then come see me during a lunch break or whatever, and I'll give you some more information on that. Okay? And that's it. Very simple.
And so I started in December of 2000, had 10 months of training, and then 9/11 hit. I found out then that 10 years of training would not have been enough. Prior to 9/11, we did fires. We did house fires, we did some emergency feeding, and every once in a while did a parade. And then 9/11 hit, and things changed dramatically. For folks, obviously, that were affected, but then even us at the Salvation Army for disaster services. In New York City, in October, New York turned over all feeding to the Salvation Army. And in New Jersey, we were set up at Liberty State Park. I was there from actually the 12th until March 22nd. We set up a Family Assistance Center Salvation Army provided breakfast for every volunteer, every staff member that came through. We worked with Red Cross. They provided lunch. When they left in December, we took over both breakfast and lunch and stayed until they closed on March 22nd. That was for all the family members, everybody going through, plus the workers that were going over. In Union, New Jersey, next time you're going north on the Parkway, you'll see the exit for 22. There's a toll in there that you'll have to pay. And there's a rest stop on the right-hand side, big McDonald's rest stop. Just past them, up on the hill, is the Salvation Army state headquarters. That's where we do the work of the Salvation Army. The financial work, the bookkeeping, and all that stuff is done there. That's my office, just up the hill behind the rest stop, which was very important because that rest stop had gas. And we were able to use that. A big plus. We have 28-4 in New Jersey. We have a camp in Hardin County. 400 acres of the most beautiful country in New Jersey is out at camp. It's a residential camp. We bring inner city kids in during the summer. They have the opportunity to see a deer live. They see them on the highway too as they go there, but they see them when they get there. And turkey, actually it was during 9/11 that we were in the process. This was given to us back in the 40s. We still had buildings up as early as 2000 that were built during the 40s that the men would then use to sleep there, and then they would build the roads in New Jersey during the New Deal. And we were still using those big stone cabins that were built back then for the kids. So now it's all modernized with log cabins, and we have a tabernacle theater that'll seat 600 people. And we get realtors every day knocking on the door trying to see if we can sell them. Those are the ATVs in use. And most importantly, up on the right-hand corner, those are our volunteers. There's 3 of us in the state of New Jersey that make a living out of disaster services. In the Salvation Army, everybody else under me is a volunteer. We can never do what we do. We call them the Army behind the Army. We could never do what we do without them. They're an incredible bunch of people. Some of the factors that is a true house from the beach, I believe. Some of the factors that influence what we provide, number one is the type of disaster. Obviously, if it's a house fire, we don't have to set up a family assistance center. We generally will do the coffee and the meals for the firefighters. Red Cross generally sets up a shelter if a shelter is needed, if it's an apartment complex or that kind of thing that has to be evacuated. In the severity of the disaster, again, there's a big difference between a house fire, an apartment fire, and then a Sandy type of situation. Go past lunch on the lessons learned. Number one, backup general for my divisional headquarters. I was there the night Sandy hit. I was giving a generator to one of our folks who was doing feeding at Rutgers, as a matter of fact. Our Plainfield building was cooking meals and then putting them on the vehicles and sending them over to Rutgers to help supply food, plus 3 other shelters that were working in the Plainfield area. I pulled out of my driveway right onto Route 22 in Union, and my first thought was, we were in the building, did I set the alarm? No, I honestly couldn't remember. So I went around the block, came back. When I got into my street, which is Gary Road, I couldn't get back into my building. A tree had come down right over the entire driveway, took out all the power lines. For the first time in history, Salvation Army was expected to respond to a disaster, and we had no power. We have no backup generator. It's an expensive item, and it's not something that they've ever looked at doing. Trust me, now they're looking. We're looking for grants, we're looking for some way to do that. And the sad part was that the street we were on only had 3 buildings on it, and they were all commercial. Not a priority when it comes to the electric company. We don't fault them. Obviously, they had millions of homes that they had to get lit up. But meanwhile, we're trying to do what we can do without our state headquarters. In order for me to get gas, I had to go down to the rest stop and actually drive my Suburban, which is 4-wheel drive, up the hill to get into my parking lot, because I couldn't, it took that long. We were without power for 10 days. We wound up moving our building to our equipment up to Montclair, where we have a small building, a small church in Montclair, and we worked out of there to the best of our ability. And I worked out of the motorhome on our space. On Facebook. We had a lady, I was involved with Haiti down at our national headquarters. My job was logistics, getting everything from here to Haiti. that was almost as much of a nightmare as getting it out of storage in Haiti and to the people. That actually took longer than it did for the trip from here to there. But Facebook was incredible. But again, you have to be careful. One day we had a lady giving birth to a child in a Salvation Army parking lot of a hospital that was down, and she was a hero. 3 days later, she was on a beach in Haiti that wasn't affected by the earthquake, and everybody said, well, wait a minute, I thought it was so bad over there. So, you know, you gotta look how you use it. Our national program, and then even my personal Facebook, I use Twitter, Salvation Army Twitter, and then also our website. Great way to get stuff out, but you know what? If you're gonna have a website, update it. Don't set it up there and then walk away. Somebody's got to look at it every day and put stuff up there because people are always looking for information.
These outside actually did quite a quick job of putting these numbers together. And I just wanted to sort of quickly go through them just to get a sense of where we are and what the results are. So, and then we'll get into the panel, so probably 10 or 15 minutes tops. I'm more interested in what you guys think rather than trying to share or explain the results. So hoping to get some feedback as to why they are the way they are. There were 3 questions. One had to do with recovery time. Excuse me. One had to do with the amount of help that a particular organization needs in terms of disruptions. And the third one was overall performance effects. This one has to do with recovery time. And the scenarios, just to give you a background on how things were set up. Each of you got either low or high effects on, let's say, leadership resilience, organizational resilience, or supply chain resilience. And then we also spiced up, so to speak, the experiment with differences in terms of disruptions that were familiar or unfamiliar, and disruptions that were short duration and long duration. These are pretty much the terminologies that are used in this literature, if you will, or in this area of study quite often. Familiarity of disruption, duration of the disruption, and the other element that is also showing up as I'm talking to more people is the amount of heads up, if you will, or forewarning that folks have in terms of the disruption. If you know a disruption is coming up a week from now, you're going to be much more prepared. You're going to be a lot more comfortable facing it than an earthquake that doesn't give you any warning. We don't have that in this discussion. Anyway, so the first one in terms of recovery time, I'm going to start with organizational. This one seems to be the most important for most of you, and that is organizational resilience in terms of internal capabilities. This is having flexible workforce, having flexible inventory, having redundant inventory, having the ability to shift things around and respond to it. And you notice that the recovery time actually drops as organizational resilience goes up, 2.64 from 3.28. The supply chain effects and leadership effects are not as important. Because we don't have a big sample size, we only have 30 people here, spread throughout many different experiments. I can't give you any statistical results, but so these are only what we would say just mean averages. In terms of recovery time, notice that when we have familiar disruption versus unfamiliar disruption, the effect of leadership in terms of unfamiliar shows itself quite a bit. Here we're saying that, interestingly enough, in reverse direction of what we are thinking. And I'm going to come back. I think I have an explanation as to this goes. But again, I'd like for you guys to give me an idea of why that happens. The ladies have assured me they've gone through the numbers 3 times. So these numbers are not backwards. They are correct as to what you wrote. So, but in terms of leadership with familiar disruptions, the effect is very similar. Notice organizational. This is saying what? That when I have high organizational resilience, I am able to affect familiar disruptions a lot better. Same thing with this, significantly more. When I'm faced with unfamiliar disruptions, high organizational leadership really makes a difference. Not surprising, right? But the question isn't about the 3.2 versus 2.3. The question is, why do we not see the same results in terms of supply chain resilience or leadership resilience, which is actually the other way around, right? So So what this is essentially saying, in the face of unfamiliar disruptions, in the face of something like a Sandy, or in the face of something like a 9/11, or heavens if we have some other unknown affecting the businesses in New Jersey, they're going to bank on their internal resilience significantly more than banking on their supply chain, right? Or frankly, and they're not going to bank on their leadership, right? Leadership is not affected in this circumstance. Now, I know Kevin has some answers to this, but hang on to the thoughts, and we're going to go through a couple more slides very quickly, and then we can quickly decide on this. Again, keep in mind this is a sample size of practically nothing. This is just in this group with 30. So the results here are just a pattern. Hopefully, as we get more results, we can have better understanding of it. Let me bring up the second slide, which is perhaps more closely related to what my institutional friends are interested in terms of what we call external assistance. So again, this is the FEMA's, the Office of the New Jersey Office, etc. Here we're saying that the resource needs and external assistance actually become practically no difference. When an organization has very resilient leadership, when the CEO speaks up and talks about the needs of his or her organization, we don't expect the organization to need any more or any less in terms of external assistance. Very close. However, again, organizational resilience becomes quite more important. 2.6 versus 1.9. So, you know, a good 0.7 difference here, right? As resilience goes up in organizational, their external assistance becomes less. Same thing with supply chain is actually very similar too. So it doesn't matter if your suppliers are ready for you. According to these results, they're going to still need the same amount of help from FEMA, from the state agencies, in other words. So this essentially covers the same results down below. We don't see very much difference. And finally, just to show you that the patterns are not that far apart from each other, I'm going to share with you the last results, which are on firm performance. And that is, how does resilience affect disruption on firm performance? Meaning what? Meaning how long does it take for them to come back online? When does it? When does Oasis Foods, for instance, or when does any large or small manufacturer in New Jersey is able to come back from Sandy in terms of when they have organizational resilience, ability? There's a significant difference, right? Much faster, right? Much less performance effect. Leadership, again, very, very close. And supply chain, somewhat less, but not that much, okay? So, in the interest of both time and the fact that very many high-ranking folks here that you guys want to listen to, I just have two questions, and I wanted to see if there's any possible insights that can be provided. What do you think of these numbers? And the general story that is told here is that if another Sandy hits and I'm a manufacturer operating in New Jersey, the onus is on me and my people, less on my leadership, and I probably shouldn't really rely so much on my supply chain either. Is that true? No?
I think certainly organization was very important, but I would have thought that supply chain would also be important and significant. I still believe that, and developing a good relationship with suppliers is very important if you want to come through something like this. Better off than
and the numbers are, you know, 2.75 and 2.6 in the other ones. I don't want to dilute the numbers. They are still there, and they are still could show significance. But amazingly, I agree with you. The strength of you will, the beta, the strength of the arrow coming from internal is so strong. It's kind of surprising to me. Any other stuff?
Yeah, I was actually shocked to see the numbers myself, right?
Yeah.
I was talking to a couple of people here looking at the numbers earlier today during the lunch. I would have thought the numbers would have been turned other way around because the whole supply chain, right? So in Rutgers, we play this game called beer game. You know, it's not a beer pong game, it's basically the 3 levels of the supply chain. And in the first level, you basically have access to one of the 3 supply chain levels. So you can access the manufacturers versus the distributors versus the retailers. And then the second tier of the game is you have access to the inventory levels at the 2 supply chain levels, so manufacturers and the distributors. And tier 3 of the game is you have access to all 3 tiers, right? So I would have thought, you know, if the leadership has access to the entire supply chain and you can actually talk to all the supply chain levels, it impacts. So
Okay.
if, God forbid, we were to be hit by another Sandy, I'm the CPO, I would like to work with a company who has talked to the entire supply chain level. They have, you know, different tiers, backup plans.
Good. And perhaps it's the way we told the story in the scenarios that didn't portray the importance of establishing those strengths. But you know, the way we told the story is the way that we hear the story. So it absolutely has a possibility that it's a give and take. It's to be able to show the effects of supply chain, you also have to be able to do so. Other comments? So what about leadership? And my friends in Verizon, on the Verizon table can shed light on this. Anyone? This is basically saying throw the leadership out of the war room, so to speak. True, false?
I don't think it's saying that exactly. My take on that is more that you have the right levels of authority at various parts of the organization in order to make decisions about your specific area, and you don't need somebody up here to tell you what you need to do for your little area in the middle of Sandy. And in fact, that was true in our case. While we had a corporate incident management team overall managing the response to Sandy, the reason why it was so successful is all the independent managers and business units that did their own thing within the framework and structure of the business continuity. So when I was looking at that personally, I was thinking to myself, well, you know, we kind of knew what to do. We didn't need somebody telling us. Not that leadership wasn't important, it's just that, you know, independently we were able to operate.
I think that was well said, because what you said was that you actually had the foundation of leadership in place. You had the business continuity in place, but at the end of the day, in order to get the work done, in fact, you know, Verizon is a place where we're very concerned with rules, we're concerned with audits. When a crisis comes, we put the rules and the audits aside and we go out and do what it takes to get it done. And that's what you're saying, is that the leadership's there, but they can't be managing the day-to-day activities. That has to be done by intuition and just, you know, the brute force of getting the work done. That was well said, thanks.
Other comments?
You know, you have like business continuity, the teams are mapped out, the structure is in place, guidance is coming from the top, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of local decisions that need to be made in a crisis. And I think that's what we were trying to differentiate there, that you can't sit and wait for, you know, the leadership team to tell everybody what to do in a crisis. At the end of the day, the foundation needs to be there, but then, you know, individuals need to go out and get it done.
Yeah, and to what Bob said earlier, I mean, you know, at the point of incident, if you're trying to figure out at that stage what's your most critical functions, you're lost. So you just might as well close shop and just go home.
I agree with all of the comments that everybody's been making on this particular aspect of it. I kind of read that part of the case study just slightly differently, and I didn't take it to mean the impact. What was the impact on success of the organization from a resilience standpoint by having one type of leadership or another because of decision making at the operational level, let's say, or at the business continuity plan level. I read that to be, does the organization have inspired energetic, vocal and visible kind of leadership, or are they detached, hidden, and unengaged, uninvolved? In other words, leading from the top in a charismatic Jack Welch kind of a way versus somebody other than Jack Welch, leading GE through that kind of a recovery.
Yes, and the intent was, in fact, and the ladies that helped me put it together can speak up here as well. The intent was, for right or wrong, when you see Chris Christie get on the mic and actually mention how important it is for New Jersey to come back, or the Giulianis of the world right after 9/11, to give inspiration and hope, sets the stage for everybody to rile up and realize, you know what, this is something that we got to get together and fix up, as much as the training has allowed. But I can see the other side too, is, if you were trying to micromanage and looking for Excel spreadsheets on updates, that could be an issue as well.
But that's a good point you just made, though. And I would agree with what I think you were saying. And I don't think we would have seen the spontaneous, and I'm not talking about government agencies and all that, doing their jobs in terms of debris removal. And I'm talking about the community response. If you want to call the community, the organization in this case, in your case study, that's fine. I personally don't think, and I'm not going to name names here, but previous governors that we've had the fortune to live under could have brought the community response that Governor Christie did to the level that he did, in the way that he did, through his charismatic, visible, vocal, I'm one of you kind of positions that he took whenever he had the opportunity. I think that's what mobilized a lot of community action at the most grassroots level, and I think it makes all the difference. It makes all the difference in the world. It's the same in the military. Anybody that's got that background, there are those leaders out there that you will find yourself working for that you can't wait for their change of command announcement to be posted. Then there are those that you don't care what's on the other side of the wall when you're asked to go through it. And that's the difference in leadership qualities and styles. And I think I read this case study to be the leadership angle of it was more towards that. Could they inspire the organization to succeed in spite of all the odds?
And that was
stacked against them.
So in the interest of time, we're going to move on to our next section. So I'm going to switch hats here. But to wrap up, first of all, thank you very much. Thank you for the MBA girls, ladies that helped out. They're some of the brightest. They did a lot of counts back there and double checks. So thank you for being here. And they're all volunteers. Other than the lunch, they didn't get anything out of it.
Are we talking years?
They're not in my class even. My class would not show up. Actually, no. Ari, the official photographer, is an MBA student of mine, and he's actually taking purchasing management. We'll talk about the grade afterwards.
I'm all about students.
So, I'm going to sit down in just a second, and in the interest of time, I think I'm not going to go across the table, although all of the folks that are here have been selected by ISM because of their background. I just happened to sneak in. And so thanks in advance for all the panel members that are here. A couple of items. This is a large panel, and so it is highly likely that we would have unequal times, and I certainly hope that everyone gets a chance to speak. So apologies in advance if there are possibilities that we might not get to all of the comments. The arrangement is, I'm just going to throw a couple of preliminary questions out there, and the idea is for a free-flow discussion. So certainly the rules are open. My only request is to try, in the interest of getting as much comments and as much colorful discussion, to try and limit the comments, questions, or the answers, probably to run 2 to 3 minutes tops again, because we want to save up as much for the dialogue. The general scope is, of course, about Superstorm Sandy, and the idea is finding out what we learned from Sandy. And we have had discussions in the past regarding where to start. So let me just start with a question, and then I'll leave it to my capable colleagues here to carry on in terms of answering. But I guess the focal point as a starting element is what was unique from your agency or your organization's perspective with regards to Sandy that made it different in terms of response and in terms of learning from other previous disruptions, be it natural or man-made. Leave it to anyone
Go ahead. Jason Wind with FEMA. They hired a group of local contractors. I don't know, again, this wasn't exactly what I was doing, but I'm aware of the initiative. So they hired a whole bunch of local contractors and had a whole application program, and they went and installed temporary power fixes on people's houses. So instead of going to shelters, the people could live and work in their own